Good evening. This is Jen Bonnett at the Creative Coast. I'm the executive director of the Creative Coast, and the Creative Coast is a nonprofit organization in the Savannah region focused on catalyzing what I like to call the innovation economy, and that is where technology and creatives and entrepreneurs come together to have an impact on our community and on our world. And tonight is Entrepreneurs Night. We like to have a fireside chat once a month with a successful entrepreneur in the Savannah ecosystem. And today we have Franci Edgerly with ITI Digital. Thanks for being with us, Franci.
I'm happy to be here, Jen. Really exciting to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. Why don't we start with you telling a little bit about your background and telling us really about how ITI Digital got started?
Yes. So my background, very briefly, I am originally from South Africa. So when I left South Africa and working in the industry, hospitality and tourism industry, left South Africa, went to Germany, worked in Germany for several years. That's where I learned to speak really good German. I had no choice. They were not going to offer that to us bilingually. So, and then I came to the United States, and that's through the hotel. I worked for Intercontinental Hotels. So that's how I ended up in the United States. This is only very important because the lessons I've learned from this is that, and I have to just brag a little bit about the United States, is that in the States we have opportunities that we just don't have. We just don't have anywhere else. The background, and I'll explain this very briefly. For many years, we would have internships, and we would bring, German interns. Right now, we've got a Brazilian intern. So these internships are very important. And my message always is the same to them, having had the experience to live in these different continents, particularly when you talk about Europe and as it relates to entrepreneurs. In Europe, if and particularly Germany, right? Let me just address Germany because that's where I live. If in Germany, if you fail, they're ashamed to that. So when you start a business and you fail, you are kind of just, put your head down and walk away. In the United States, and this is a humongous difference. In the United States, there is not shame in failure. There's shame in not trying. And that is the biggest difference. In the United States, if you start a business or anything you do, if you happen to fail, and it may happen, it will. Some entrepreneurs are born under this lucky star. It works smooth all the way, but I'm sure they have their hiccups. But, if you fail in the United States, there will always be somebody or group of people that will say, that's not a problem. Get up, try again, and you get encouraged. So that's why there's more shame, that here you are in this country and you're not trying. And that's where the shame is, and that's where the difference is. And I feel that this is why the States is such an economic powerhouse, because of this whole attitude about entrepreneurship and making people, encouraging people, and looking at failure as an opportunity to learn and not something to be embarrassed about. So short and long, and I'll try and make this very quick. I started the business, my background again is hospitality industry, tourism industry. I started the business in Cincinnati, Ohio. It really started as a consulting business. And I think this is a little lesson that I've learned as an entrepreneur. You have to be, you have to look, and I don't know, you have to look at what is the market doing. And I think it sounds easy, but sometimes when you're in the middle of the forest, it's hard to see the trees, right? And to be able to, so in Cincinnati, when I started the business, I really started as an international marketing consultant. And what that meant is that we had an office just outside London, and then in Germany and in Düsseldorf, and we represented tourism offices in UK as well as the German-speaking countries. and promote it, help them market their destinations to that European market. Now, the digital side came a little bit later on. I really was doing a lot of travel back and forth to Europe and back, and I really recognized as a consultant, I don't have a product. I needed a product. And again, having the opportunity to be a part of a bigger world, in our industry, ITB is a big international show. That's where I really could see where the world was going, and it was digital. And when Apple started launching and they came into play with the iPhone, Microsoft, what they're doing, it just opened the whole world for entrepreneurs to build businesses. And that's where I really started looking at how do we move from being a consultant versus getting to digital, because I felt very strongly, and for once in my life I was right, or read the signs right, move into the digital world. And once we moved into that world, we never looked back. I don't hear you.
I was muted for a second. I have my buddy, my coworker, Mocha, sometimes chimes in. So we have to put it on mute there for a second. So yeah, I mean, what a great story coming from big corporate travel and tourism and reading the tea leaves right and getting into digital. I'm going to have a question about that later. But right now I'd like to know a little bit more about kind of where your company is at from a size perspective. Like how many employees do you have? Maybe explain the business model a little bit. Do you have customers on long-term retainers or annual contracts? And if so, how many customers are you dealing with at any given point in time, or is it more project-based, that kind of stuff?
Okay. And so, we're about 15 people in our company. So we're rather small compared, especially Jen, some of these companies that you're working with. Our clients that we work with are tourism offices, right? So we work with regions, states and regions and cities, Convention and Visitors Bureau. Our product is twofold. We do work on a per project basis as we do search engine marketing campaigns or website development. But where the growth opportunity for the company is our SaaS, our software that we've developed. And this is, when I started the development of this software, again, very particular for our industry, instead of having just one type of software, I really looked, and because then you end up competing directly with, so if I decide I'm only going to have Instagram user-generated content, have that software aggregate that content, and that helps the destination tell their story. So there's some strategy behind that, right? But if I only have that one product, somebody else can come out and say, well, I can do the same thing. And, you have the bell, I'll have the whistle. And so you have that direct competition. So when I was looking at the business model that I wanted to have SaaS, annual contracts is what we look at, and what we have, that's our target audience. I looked at the Microsoft model, and Microsoft's model is a suite of products, right? You have Word, you have PowerPoint, you have Excel, and that was the model that intrigued me, and that made a whole lot of sense to me. I think it's harder to duplicate that, and that one part of it. The second part of it, the benefit to our clients is that they're going to work with one vendor that can offer them 5 different solutions, SaaS solutions. So instead of working for 5 different vendors, they just work with one. So this is a kind of a win for everybody involved. So when people say, who are your competitors? We are cautious and we say, right now, we don't see it because you never know, right? So that's our business model, and that's really how we set up our product.
Excellent. About how many customers do you have?
We have close to, a little bit over 100 customers. So, last year was a pretty, I think Jen, we spend a lot of time in product development. You're right. So you develop the product, then you go to market, proof of concept. You go out for that, you test, you come back. And so last year, and then you bring clients on board, and it's a little bit like open source a little bit in a way, because these clients will then come back and say, well, this doesn't work this well. Can you guys add this or that? So that's how this evolved. And literally, this is the first year that we're going in where we're not into a serious development. We're now working UX. How can we make that user experience better, different, changing, for instance, we made a big change in October, and it wouldn't mean a whole lot to everybody, but a big change. We went from working with Facebook as our primary source. We switched to Google. And that was a big switch from these two APIs for our software. So having said that, so this is really the first year where we say the product is there. And you know this, Jen, you're in software. It's never perfect. It's never, you always ding with it, right? You're always going to change something, keep raising the bar. But we are at the place where it's working the way it's supposed to. We're gaining traction. So we're looking at this year to be really a big growth year for us.
That's exciting. Since you've kind of gone from consulting to in non-digital to consulting in digital, and then added this SaaS product, I think I have to focus this next question. I usually ask about your first customer. And it's really about how did you get that first customer, that ever important first customer? As a startup, we've got entrepreneurs that are going to watch us that are really honestly aspiring entrepreneurs with an idea, and
right.
are trying to figure, that's 90% of our audience, and they're trying to figure out how to get this idea off the ground. So finding that first customer is probably one of the hardest things on the planet. So talk a little bit about how you got that traction with that very first customer.
Okay, so here's the advantage that I have, Jen, because I already, our company was known in our tourism industry. People knew who we were. Right. So I had I just had clients that we've been working with for years and years on different projects. So that first customer was already somebody that, was an organization that already knew us, was familiar with us. So that's an advantage, right? So, yeah. So that very first customer was really that, actually was New Smyrna Beach, Florida, that said, yes, I see this, I get it, and I want all of it, And for them, it was really changing for their website, their content strategies, how switching their content strategies, but we already had that trust. So that's a really super big advantage, because I agree. Everything, we working on trying to enter a new market where people don't know us, and it's always the same, right? Is anybody else doing this? Who else is doing it? And to be able to, you have to get that one person that's going to say, I get it, and I want to do this. And it's not easy. It really isn't.
Yeah, it's all about the warm intro, right?
Yeah.
You go into a new market and you can get a warm intro from somebody that's respected in that space. It's like, wow, okay, the world has just opened up. So I think it's really interesting. A lot of entrepreneurs will come to me with multiple ideas, and sometimes they want to go exact opposite of everything they've ever done in their entire life. And I always have to question that. I think because it would be so much easier to start a company where your current relationships are valuable assets to the new business. So it's kind of interesting, but sometimes people want to go exactly the opposite direction. So it's really interesting to me. Talk about the funding model. I mean, I'm assuming you self-funded to date. Really, I would call it customer funded, right? It was a consulting business. So the customers funded the development. As you got more and more customers, you were able to put some money towards the development. So talk about whether or not you took any outside funding, and either way, whether you took it or not, what are the pluses or minuses to method that you chose or the path that you went down?
Yeah, Jen, this has always been in a way a little bit my Achilles heel. They say as an entrepreneur, you should not have any fear. But I have a fear of partnerships because I've seen so many of them go south, right? So my funding, you're right, is customer funded. It is, and I think, let me just explain, and it's Bank of America. And in the beginning, like so many entrepreneurs, it's your credit card, right? Thank you. We're beyond that stage, which is great news. But so the positive side of being self-funded, and grow with your own funds and, everything you have, you invest. I don't mortgage the house. I'm at least that smart. Mortgage my house for the business. But it's great. I don't have a partner. So, I have team members that shares my passion. But the only people that drives the business that I report to are our clients. So that's great, right? That's really nice. Yeah. The negative on that is not having that fund is that your growth is a lot slower, right? Because you've got to you keep shifting and you grow in stages. Where if you can get beyond that fear factor, for me it was a fear factor, or is. And I think getting that investment and getting the right investor, would be the most immediate growth opportunity. So I'm not sure, and Jen, you know better than I do, everybody has to take their own path. it's a difficult choice. If you hear the wonderful stories of the angel investor came by, gave you all this money, never interfered with your business, and then they're saying, right, never told what to do.
That's a myth.
I thank you. And because let me buy a lottery ticket. Let me, I got to do that lottery thing. But then you hear, I heard there's this a podcast about is it the chicken salad chick, right? And she was telling the story how she and her husband kept growing, and they like my nightmare story, what they told. So they got an investor, they owed 50% or 49, they owed 50, they didn't split it halfway. But anyway, so they quickly found out that this partnership is not going to work. So then they said, we want to get out of it. And then the investor said, well, sorry, Charlie, you can't do that. You've signed this contract. In order to get out of this, you need $3 million. And then, of course, it's the fine print. So the company, they spend all their time, all their years building from zero, is now hanging, it all can go up, in smoke, so to speak. But the story ended well. They
seem to be doing okay. So,
but you see, that's the opposite side then of it, is right. The very last day when they just were going to give up, somebody, I think it was a builder, gave them $3 million to buy the business back, and then from there was an investor. You see, now there's the positive story, and from there they took off. They built their franchises, and they're 70+ million or billion, whatever dollar company. So there's always two sides to it. I think there's a lot to be said to get that investor, but, I obviously has a trust problem. I think I need counseling or something.
I think it's very hard because it is a long-term relationship. It's, best case scenario, 5 to 10 year game. Like if you take outside funding, right? Most startups that get acquired are acquired in the closer to 10 years than 5. So it is a long-term relationship, and you have to find the right people. And I think oftentimes people take money and don't actually remember that they should be interviewing the investor, as in addition to the investor interviewing you. Like the investor is going to do deep dive due diligence on you. Are you doing due diligence on the investor? Becomes the question. I do think there's an interesting thing that happened because of COVID-19 and the CARES Act, is that the the PPP program, the Payroll Protection Program, which just released phase 2 yesterday, was really about payroll, right? Taking care of payroll. But the EIDL program is meant to be used for other expenses, right? So that could include giving you some buffer, right, for companies that went for the EIDL loan. I'll put it out there. The Creative Coast went for an EIDL loan, and they look at kind of what your income normally is and what your expenses normally are, and they had some sort of calculation, and we qualified for $121,000. That's a 30-year loan at 2.75%.
That's it. And what was
it's called the SBA EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And there is still money out there available in that program. It's very easy to apply for. But, now the board, the Creative Coast is a nonprofit, so we have a 2.75% rate, whereas a for-profit entity would have a 3.75 rate, but it's still 30 years. So it's almost free money. Whatever you get is basically almost free money to help you weather the storm of COVID and or build new products, expand, right? To actually help maybe grow. So I think there's an opportunity for people that took advantage of it to say, okay, I'm going to use this money to help me stabilize during this crazy time, but also position ourselves better for the future. And, like I said, the Creative Coast got $121,000. So we're, $300,000 a year revenue organization, and nonprofit. So our revenues and our expenses are neck and neck every year. But now we have cash in the bank to protect us for the future. So, and to allow us to rethink, add new programs and experiment and do some things and see what's going to happen. I do think that there's an opportunity for companies to take advantage of that still. So we might have to talk about that next week.
Yes.
I always like to talk to entrepreneurs about when you launch a business, there's so much uncertainty. And there's usually, most entrepreneurs I talk to have some point where they were like, I didn't really think we are going to make it past that. But once we made it, I knew we were going to be okay. There's an inflection point somewhere along that journey that got you to where you are today. And so I like to ask people where were you at that inflection point? At what point were you we went through these 3 tough things, but then we were there?
Yeah, as it relates to our software, it's really when people started investing in, because I look at it as an investment, buying the software services. When we got to the, the first client, you go, wow, okay, they bought it because they really like me, and then when you get to about after about the 10, 20. And now it's there. You've been able to prove that you can handle the bugs in the software, and there's you start getting that positive feedback. That really was it for me. But I have to confess, and I don't know. Entrepreneurship is a lifestyle, Jen, right? So I just always knew it will work. And if it doesn't, you go down this road and you're like, this is not working. Oh, that's you. I thought it was my dog. So that's good.
My coworker.
But it's that, knowing when to pivot. So I never, I don't know. I just always believed it's going to work. I just always, okay, this doesn't work. We got to do this. Facebook was giving us fits for multiple of reasons on how it worked in our software, then changing their rules overnight. And then we arrive and like, what? And then, oh, by the way, this notification came overnight and they changed everything. And then, all Facebook developers, that work with us, Facebook has to scramble to make it happen. And it just always, being on that, I don't know. I just always feel like it's going to work. Okay, this doesn't work. Let's look at Google. Well, Google is going to cost you money. Okay, I'll partner with Google, and because their business model is revenue, right? So I rather pay for the content, and I know it's something I can depend on. But anyway, to answer your question, it's just I'm always, it's when you start getting more clients on board, that I could never sell to family because they never understood what we did. Everybody always says, well, I sold it to my sister and she really liked it. But it's getting that ongoing, seeing the sales grow. But I never felt like, I just always felt it's going to work. I just I don't know what it is. Like I said, that it's a lifestyle. So you just live that.
You keep pivoting until you figure out what works. Right. What would you say is your biggest challenge?
Growing without investors, Jen.
Yeah.
That's, I do think that's really, I will say COVID, I guess this is the way it is with God, good comes with bad and so on. So COVID has really helped businesses like ours, right? On the digital side. I don't only think ours, but digital is helping all of us. I think people are more willing to look at new solutions and do business differently. So, the challenge is just is to be in front of these people at this right time. The timing is perfect for us and our industry on every level. It's having, the investment, and it's really the having, I've got a great sales team, but I need a bigger sales team. I need more people out there. And that's the challenge. And getting to that at this period, that would be the biggest challenge. As far as digital in our industry, it's blue sky, in my opinion. And I love IBM's slogan, which is, this is not a restart, it's a rethink. And in it, that's what we find in our industry. Everybody is rethinking things that they used to do the same way year after year after year. Suddenly they are no way, hold on, we've got to do things differently. And we're like, yes. So that's kind of the hard part and the good part about it.
Well, and that's different than March, though, right? You and I had a conversation in the end of March, and you were very worried.
Yes, very different, and a good point. And in March, of course, and then in COVID, and the sky was falling. What we found from our clients, they were good stewards because they get most of them are, from their tourism side, they funded by bed taxes and so on. And they were really, I want to say 99.9%, they were very good stewards of the taxpayers' money because they had funds set aside for rainy days, so they had this funding. So they didn't stop their marketing. They kept staying in front of their audiences. They switched more of their investments to digital, which benefited us. So yes,
that's
so
good.
that all changing. Yeah.
Because I remember a conversation on the end of March where we were packing up our cars. We were leaving Novel, right? And you guys were packing up and I was packing up, and we're saying, we'll see you when we see you, kind of thing, because shelter in place has been called, right? And
it was amazing, Jen, because it was just, it was just incredible how, and then vacation rentals, that is just and you've got one of those short-term rentals that is just taking off like a rocket. So many of our clients, for all the reasons, right? People are not that excited about hotels. And I noticed some of them are now offering one-night stays. You can stay just for one night. So they're going in direct competition with the hotel companies. But so many of our destinations have vacation rentals, which they also get bad taxes. So for a while, they were holding their breaths and, everything went on hold. That's why we were so concerned. What is this going to look like? But then because of vacation rentals, they kept thriving. Yeah. And let me, thriving may be overstating, but they were holding their own. So
right. They had expected to totally tank, and then the world changed because I think people took advantage of more driving vacations than airports and stuff like that. But people got sick of staring at the same four walls. So it was let me go stare at four walls somewhere else and maybe take a walk on a beach.
The state of Wyoming is now having a big tourism boom, and open spaces, right? And then that's where, our technology and software that we offer is really something they are, that we're working with them on. So it just changed. Wyoming, I don't know if they ever would have, Wyoming is a great state, but they never really had seen such a tourism boom. And so that, the trickle effect, right? So now they're looking at, how can I reach more people? And that the way you do it is through your digital. That's how you do that.
Yeah, very cool. So I always like to ask people what their definition of success is, because I think success is very personal. Like one is corner office, Ferrari, right? And big house or whateher. Other people is like, hey, I want to make a good living and have fun, right? So I like to ask, what is your definition of success?
Okay, first of all, I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but really, and there's two levels. So let me start with the fun part. If you ask Alan, my husband, his idea of success would be a bigger boat. A bigger boat. But for me, success is, financial security, not only for me, but for the team, right? It's for them to have that finance, to be able to help, because as you grow your business, you can give more people opportunities, right? Because you can hire more people and you can watch them grow. That's success, that you can, to be able to do that. And then delivering a product that help your clients grow, and see the excitement that they see is like, wow, we didn't think we can do that. That's success. And that when you can do that, we none of us have been to tourism or conference or trade shows, but the success is when you walk down the aisle and everybody look at you and they have a big smile on their face and say, hey, they don't go and try walk the other way. So that's success has many, many forms, and you're right about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a question that I didn't pre tell you about in an earlier email, because it came up actually because of your origin story, where you kind of pivoted into where you are today, right? You went from international consulting, kind of saw the light, went towards digital. We're doing the website and more custom work, and then saw an opportunity to move into SaaS products that supported the same market, which is travel and tourism. Travel and tourism has been through a really rough year. I'm really, really optimistic about the future of travel and tourism. I'm optimistic about the future of remote work. And I'm very optimistic about the future of our small but thriving tech scene and creative technology scene in Savannah, Georgia. So I'm just curious as to, when you think about the future of your industry coming out of COVID, what do you see in the travel and tourism space?
Well, Jen, everybody is very, it's very, very excited and optimistic, right? I think that's what we hear from everybody. Everybody. I think every business, the vaccine being out there, they feel a lot more optimistic. But, look at the tourism business we have in Savannah. Isn't that amazing? If I look out of my office, I walk out of Novel, isn't it great to see the horse-drawn carriages, people. And so, yeah. So when we talk to the executive directors, the presidents and so on, of these tourism divisions, every one of them are very optimistic. They see growth. I think many of them worked very hard not to lay off people. They really worked. They care about their people. So overall, they are. Everyone we talk to, they've cut our budget. We hear the same. Our budgets are cut, but. And there's always a but, right? But we've made some changes, or we see the future, or we believe, but in July it's going to be different. So I think how everybody's doing business is different. But again, they just total optimism, which it is almost, maybe I'm overstating it, but I feel a little bit, also excitement from, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we've learned lessons, and they're going to apply those lessons. So that's where we are now. And
yeah, I know. I can't wait to travel. I'm going to plan a big trip for either the fall, winter, Q4, or early 2022. Yeah. Right. One of my last questions, and then I am going to open it up to anybody that would like to ask a question or two in the audience. Give it, I always like to ask somebody to give a tip. So we've got a lot of, again, aspiring entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs that are just starting their business. We're going to be kicking off the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp for people at the idea stage the week of February 1st. What are your tips for somebody just getting started on their entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, Jen, there's so many, right? Have grit, have that go get it attitude, have that grit, challenge yourself, because you never stop learning. I always say, we all say it, I don't know what I don't know. So I've never worked with software developers. I spend a lot of time learning, reading, so I understand what questions to ask, to help, because part of the entrepreneur's role is to help the team think things through, right? So you have this brilliant idea, and helping, driving them through that, to be passionate, and I think any entrepreneur, they are passionate, to trust yourself, believe in what you're doing, trust that, that have that faith in you. And that's hard because you get your tail kicked every now and again. And sometimes you're like, am I the only one that sees this? But trust yourself, and take risk. When I started looking at, okay, we're going to create a software suite, and nobody's ever done that. Okay, we're going to do this. Take the risk. So will it pay off? I don't know, but I'm going to go down trying. I'm going to take that risk because I just see that, as something. You visualize your goal, and I think something that's really important is to have a team that shares your vision. You don't want to have to drag somebody over the finishing line. It's like, come on, people. You have to have that team that's like, oh my gosh, what about this? We can do this, we can do that. And having that team, and that's not easy. It's easy to say that, but to find that team, I understand that it's easy, but it's, as an entrepreneur, it's easier if you have that team that also shares your vision. The one I have to work on is overcoming fear. What's my fear? To get an investor. Other than that, I'm fearless. I'm there.
Yeah, I don't think entrepreneurship is being fearless. I think entrepreneurship is saying that the fear is not going to stop me.
That's true. Well said, because you're right. You do have fear, the what if, right?
Selling a big customer, like going into a really big customer the first time, like you're going to have butterflies in your stomach. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going to be nervous, right? There's, you're going to not sleep the night before because you're petrified of that meeting.
Right.
But you got to walk through it. You got to do the meeting. You got to take the meeting, and hopefully you nail the meeting, or eventually you'll get to a point where you nail one of those meetings, right? So I think it's acting in spite of fear, right, versus not having fear.
That's very well phrased. You're right about that. See, you're a mentor. That's why we love you, Jen. You help us.
Well, thank you. So I did want to open it up to anybody that's on tonight. It is 6:45, so I try and keep these to about less than an hour. So we have a few more minutes. I like to keep it right around 45 minutes to an hour. Does anybody on have any questions that they would like to ask Franci? If so, feel free to unmute and ask.
Yeah, Franci, thanks so much for being here. I do have a question, and you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but just from a few of your answers throughout, I could tell you are a good leader, and you seem to really care about your team. And I'm just curious, when you're hiring, again, you kind of said looking for people that are motivated and on the same page as you. But how did you go about? I guess it's kind of two questions. How did you go about deciding on what works for your company culture, and what's your philosophy for managing your team? I know that's I think you're remote, right? Or everybody's kind of remote right now, I'm assuming. But how do you manage? That's open-ended question.
Those are big questions. That's for sure. So how we manage is, I'm a collaborator. I like to collaborate with the team. At the end of the day, I will make that decision. But the company culture is we collaborate. I expect team members, to come with ideas, to share ideas, and to be active participants in whatever we do. So that would be the best way. That's a culture. For instance, we were. Yeah, I need their input. That's what I'm after. We want that collaboration. The challenge, I think, for any manager, not just for the entrepreneur, is recognizing the gifts that each person brings to the table, and then to work with them and nurture that. I usually, when we hire, I would say you're being hired for this particular position, but you're going to write, at the end of the day, you're going to write your own job description, because we're going to find out where your gifts and your talents are. Right now, you may think you're, like Megan that just joined our team. She's got big tech, background and experience. But I think, I have an idea where I think Megan can go, whether she ends up going that way. So what we hired her for to do may change into something different. So I feel as a leader, we as leaders, we have responsibilities to nurture our team, create that environment where they feel that they can grow and nurture that talent and that gift that they bring to the table. I don't know if that answers it.
Oh, it did. Thank you. That was great. Yeah.
All righty.
Thanks. It looks like Mark has shown his camera, so I'm thinking Mark has a question.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hi, Franci.
Hey there, Mark. Nice to see you.
Yes. Just a few observations regarding some of the comments that you made earlier, and that is Elon Musk, who is from South Africa, views the United States as a nation tolerant of risk takers. It was, and he has talked about how he immigrated from South Africa to Canada, then was at Wharton in the U.S. to earn degrees in physics and economics. And then he went on to Silicon Valley because of the technology and opportunities he saw there. Another comment or observation is from Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn. He said that speed to taking products to market is critical, and entrepreneurs should innovate and fail fast. You talked about tolerance for risk-taking and failure. You mentioned Cincinnati. I lived there from 1991 to 2006.
Oh my gosh!
We should talk sometime regarding our experiences there.
Cincinnati is a great city, isn't it?
Yes. Any excuse for a festival, and there is a large Eastern European and German influence there.
Yep.
Of course, you've attended Oktoberfest Cincinnati, which is quite the event there. I have a few questions, and I'll start with this one. How do you price your software? Advertising, click-throughs, subscription?
It's subscription, Mark. That's our model. And again, when we created the software suites, we would call them widgets, because so you can subscribe, so it's all in its annual subscription. The concern always, in SaaS is the churn that you're going to start losing that business. Our renewals are about 98%, 99%. So it's pretty impressive, and I think that is really, so we start the year strong because we already know, we already have renewals for 2021, right? So most of our efforts, so we're not starting with a clean slate, like we have to start over every year. So we start with a very strong base, and this year particularly starts with a strong base. So that the SaaS model is wonderful. I think when we started, when the SaaS model came out, people didn't really understand it or like it, but now it's par for the course, right? And so that's just more acceptable to subscribe. They get the idea on what they're subscribing for.
Mm-hmm. I spoke with Alina a few days ago, and she said that some of your competitors whose pricing was based on advertising, click-throughs, et cetera, were certainly, it was, they weren't getting the revenue that they had prior to COVID.
And that is true, absolutely true, Mark. And the digital marketing is just, it's a very, very competitive environment. So I'm very happy, so our company is not one-dimensional, that we only do, right, SaaS. So we do SaaS, we do digital, website about. So that helps. It helps us, when through that valley, ups and downs, right? And the search engine marketing, the click was great for a while, but I early on wanted to not be as involved with that, and that's true. That's exactly what we're seeing.
Okay, excellent. Next question I have is, some countries are promoting their locations as havens for digital nomads. The number of digital nomads is estimated at more than 1 billion by 2035. Is your company involved with this segment of travel and tourism?
No, we're not, but it sounds like we should be.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like we should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them, for example, Bermuda. There's also an island off of near Portugal. Tallinn, Estonia. Some of these places are offering 1-year visas. The nomads have to produce evidence of regular monthly income, as well as other documentation to be allowed to enter the country and apply for these visas.
Yeah, I have a friend that runs NomadX out of Portugal. He's a former entrepreneur out of Atlanta. He, Dave Williams, and ran 360 Interactive. Was his last Atlanta-based startup. And he's been doing the digital nomad thing for probably 5 years now. So he's been ahead of the curve, but he really struggled. They struggled a lot in the first shelter-in-place orders, but now things seem to be opening up across the globe, and it's a big thing. Savannah's been able to take advantage of it from the remote worker incentive that CETA introduced. We've had 60 people move to Savannah. Tech workers with 3+ years experience moved to Savannah since June 1st.
That's a big number.
Yeah.
So it's music to our ears. We love that.
Yeah. So just growing the workforce. Keep them coming.
Excellent. Next question I had was, you have a service specifically for vacation rentals. why would a prospective client choose your solution versus Airbnb or some other content management system?
Well, what we've seen in the market, I'll try and answer this very succinctly as I can. What we do specifically, and I have to explain it, just we provide content for the websites and it's all automated. So when you look at vacation rental companies, particularly their website, they have to market the destination before they can start selling their vacation rental. So, and usually the content that they have on their website are really lame. It's very static. It's, blogs. It's not very interactive. We've been in the destination marketing industry. That's what we do. That's what we market. We destination marketing experts. That's our business. So it's that content that we now deliver that's automated, and that it really helps them on the vacation rental side. If we talk about it, having that content, it helps them on different levels. They reach new markets because it's people that's never, for instance, been to Savannah. So that it reach new markets. They provide guest services because now it's, show me hotels, show me restaurants nearby, and it has travel tools in it. So that guest services, it encourages people to come back often and stay longer because our events widget, we deliver content daily, for events, things that's happening, for instance, in Savannah, and we can do this for any city, anywhere. So events is usually the number one, top 5, if not the number 1 most visited page, because people want to know, what can I do when I'm there? So if I can see there's a lot of cool events, there's a piano player, there's a cooking class, whatever it might be, that encourage people to come back often and stay longer. So that's going to help help their bottom lines. And then our content management system helps them to also manage their advertising, right? So if they want to generate revenue, so it's not just only the content that we deliver, but the CMS is going to help them to publish advertising, I won't go into detail on their website. So it's not just a CMS system that manage. So we deliver dynamic content. They have a CMS system that they can manage the content with. And then there is now also the travel tools and, the opportunity for them to manage their advertisers on there, where they are published on the site, on the top, on the left, whatever it might be, create specific categories so that it becomes a revenue generator. So everything we do for the vacation rental, that's a really good model for us, or good match, because they are for profit, right? Unlike our tourism offices, which are nonprofits. But for them, for vacation rental, we can really affect that bottom line.
Excellent. Yes, your site is very visually appealing, and as you said, it flows very interactive. Do you push content to social media? For example, if I create a listing in on your site, do you have something that automates the push to multiple channels?
The answer is no. But
Okay.
we use Instagram, but we pull that data, right? Instead of pushing it out, we're going to pull that data into the website. So we do use social media. Google, for instance, we use reviews. So that's part of social media, type of social media as well. But we pull the content, so we don't push that out.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
We are coming up here on 6:58, so being mindful of everyone's time, I am going to call it an evening. Franci, thank you. Thank you for participating this evening. I congratulate you on your success to date and hope to see you continue to grow and thrive and be part of our Savannah entrepreneurial community.
Well, and Jen, I want to thank you for being such a great leader and motivator, and the vision that you have. You always stop by my office maybe once a month or every other month, And that's what you do for as entrepreneurs. You encourage us, and and it's great. You have the experience. You know what it takes to be there. So we appreciate you. So thank you very much, Jen. Thank you.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
we'll see you next month.